Put your hands behind your back and don't make a sound, or you'll never leave this gate alive. That was the threat, flat, close, and sharp enough to cut through the morning airport buzz. Two men, trained, armed, and coordinated, grabbed her at Gate 9. But Elena Marlowe didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She turned her head just slightly and smiled. 83 seconds later, one man was unconscious, the other bleeding, and every camera in the terminal had stopped blinking. No gun in her hand, no badge on her belt, just one woman standing amid overturned chairs in stunned silence. So the question is, who is Elena Marlowe? And how did a woman with a boarding pass stop a war before it even began? The moment Elena Marlowe felt the shift in air pressure to her left, she knew. It wasn't a breeze. It wasn't turbulence. It was presence. Two figures, too close, too coordinated. They didn't bump into her, didn't shove. No noise, no panic, just quiet synchronization. The kind that's not taught in self-defense classes or found in petty criminals. The kind that only comes from years of shared missions and brutal conditioning. They didn't stand next to her, they flanked her. One to the left, one to the right. Timing perfect. Breathing even. Their formation, military. Elena didn't move, not visibly, but her mind lit up like a control panel. She scanned the left first. Tall, built like a cargo loader, face shadowed beneath a charcoal hood. Most would miss the old scar running from ear to jaw. Elena didn't. Jagged, field-stitched, likely shrapnel, not surgical. That told her three things. He'd seen combat, he'd bled without backup, and he'd survived the kind of wound that usually ends stories. Her eyes shifted. Not fully, just in the peripheral. The other one, shorter, compact, thick torso, twitchy hands. His jacket shifted ever so slightly when he breathed, just enough to see the edge of something rigid under the fabric. A bulge, too angular for a wallet, too firm for a radio. His left wrist bore a watch. Matte black, military-issued, second-hand synchronized with precision. But it was the way his fingers danced, lightly, deliberately, that said everything. This man wasn't nervous. He was waiting. She'd seen that before. In Kandahar, in Irkutsk, on night patrols in the Horn of Africa. That hyper-awareness, that surgical tension, the same grip a trained operative uses when holding a trigger with a heartbeat behind it. These weren't thugs, these weren't robbers. They were operators, and they were here for her. But how many people in that terminal noticed? The answer, none. There was a family 3 feet away, arguing over snacks, a couple scrolling on their phones, a janitor wheeling past with a mop and a half-lit stare. Gate 9 buzzed with oblivion. Elena, however, noticed everything. How many of us truly notice the signs of danger? The uneven breathing, the misplaced silence. Elena did, and that made all the difference. She loosened her grip on the boarding pass, just enough to free her dominant hand if needed. The tall one whispered something, close to her ear, words designed to control, not frighten, but dominate. We're walking to the restroom. You'll smile. You'll act normal. If you don't, this place will make headlines for all the wrong reasons. His breath was hot, his tone surgical. He assumed fear would paralyze her. He didn't realize calm was her native language. The accent slipped through. Baltic Edge, Eastern Merk dialect, not quite Russian, more likely ex-Landre Corps. Contractors with no nation, no leash, no rules, which meant this wasn't a random grab. This was coordinated, planned, strategic. Elena's mind mapped the area. 3 exits, 2 forward, 1 behind, 2 stanchions, 1 vending machine, a clipboard on the gate desk, a wrench kit left unattended next to a service panel, espresso machine, still hot. Civilian blast radius, 60 feet. Casualty projection, 200 if shrapnel's packed. She ran all that in under 4 seconds, and behind her eyes something shifted. Not fear, not adrenaline, stillness, calculated stillness. Stillness isn't submission, it's preparation. And when Elena Marlowe stood still, it meant someone else was about to fall. Her eyes moved once more, this time catching a flash beneath the shorter man's jacket. A red light, subtle, faint, but unmistakable. A detonator, military grade, twin pole antenna, Eastern Bloc engineering, Black Ember variant. She didn't just know the model, she knew the range, the resistance, the kill radius. They weren't here to take her. They were here to use her, either as leverage or as the catalyst for something far worse. And just like that, Elena's mindset solidified. She was no longer a passenger waiting for a flight. She was an asset, activated. She lowered her center of gravity by less than an inch. Subtle enough to pass for fatigue, she adjusted her breathing, one inhale, one hold. The tall man pressed his hand into her back, and that's when she smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a fearful smile. A deliberate, unsettling, slow-motion curl of the lips. The kind of smile only someone trained to dismantle lives could wear in silence. He didn't notice at first, but the shorter one did. His pupils blew wide, not with fear but confusion. What kind of civilian smiles before being taken? He didn't know yet, but he was about to find out. Elena Marlowe didn't blink. She didn't scream, didn't move, didn't reach. She calculated. The short one's jacket shifted again, just slightly, enough for the detonator to flash red once more. Not a phone, not a fake. A real military-grade trigger, Eastern black market, twin antenna with broad-range signal capability. It wasn't just for show. This was a bomb meant to do damage and survive disruption attempts. Most people would freeze. Elena focused. 3 exits, 28 feet. Left, clear line, but a family with a stroller blocked the corridor. Right, vending machine and stanchions, slow retreat. Behind, clean. Glass doors, auto-release sensors, could be jammed. 2 attackers, both in tight proximity. No weapons visible, yet. But she felt it. The short one's right shoulder dipped slightly every few seconds. Sidearm weight compensation. The tall one adjusted his boot pressure left to right, favored shooting stance. She mentally clocked distance, posture, limb range, surrounding crowd radius, and then environment. Clipboard on desk, sharp enough edge, hot espresso machine 2 meters left, mop bucket with steel handle, unattended, fire extinguisher on the wall, and the wrench kit. Standard maintenance tools still unclaimed. Her heart rate never broke 75. The tall man leaned in, voice low. Now walk. And that was it. The final signal. No more time. They were moving her, isolating her, trying to take her to the bathroom corridor, the blind spot in every terminal. That's where the body count would start. But Elena had no intention of becoming their hostage or their excuse. She moved, no warning, no sound, just action. Her elbow drove backward, hard and precise, straight into the solar plexus of the taller man. Air rushed from his lungs like a punctured tire. He folded. In one fluid twist, she turned toward the short one. His hand was already reaching under the jacket, toward the trigger. Too late. Her hand clamped down on his wrist. Fast, surgical. Thumb pressing into the radial nerve, fingers locking the tendons. He jerked. The detonator slipped. It hit the tile, clattered, bounced once. A scream rose from the counter. Gun! He's got a gun! That's when chaos ignited. People scattered. Luggage flew. A baby started crying. Somewhere in the distance, a coffee cup shattered. The tall man, gasping for air, reached instinctively for his waistband. Elena saw the shift in his shoulder and the slight gleam of steel. A pistol, compact, suppressed. Civilian safe in theory, deadly in the wrong hands. She didn't hesitate. She dropped low, swept his legs with a pivoting kick, and sent him crashing into a metal bench. Chairs folded, bags exploded. A briefcase spilled documents into the air like paper snow. The short one lunged at her with one hand, his wrist still half numb. Rage replaced calculation. Adrenaline overpowered training. He came at her head on. Wrong move. She sidestepped, just an inch, and let his momentum carry him forward. Crack! His face collided with a concrete pillar. He went limp before his knees hit the ground. That's 2 down, or so she thought. Real combat isn't flashy. It doesn't come with slow motion or dramatic music. It's ugly, it's fast, and it ends before fear even gets a word in. But it wasn't over. Elena spun toward the tall man again. He was already moving, to slower now, wounded but trained. He repositioned behind an overturned row of chairs, gun in hand, body tight behind cover. He didn't panic. He recalculated. So did she. She ducked behind a pillar as bullets cracked overhead. One round shattered a security monitor. Another ricocheted off the vending machine, sending chips and sparks into the air. And then, her eyes caught it. A child. 6 feet away, huddled behind an airport stroller, was a little girl, maybe 5, clutching a stuffed elephant, frozen, terrified, alone. If Elena made the wrong move, that child would die. The tall man shifted. He had the angle. He had the shot. She moved, faked left, dove right. Concrete exploded behind her as a round punched the floor. She rolled hard behind the man. Close, too close. And then she saw it, a knife under his belt. She ripped it free in a single motion. Russian design, Spetsnaz steel, curved handle. Black ember make. These weren't terrorists. They were something worse, ghost contractors, off books, off leash. He raised the gun. They locked eyes. For a second there was silence. The kind of silence that exists only right before a decision ends someone's life. Then she threw the knife. Not in desperation, in precision. It spun once, twice, a blur of black and silver, and it buried itself in the tendons of his gun hand. He screamed. The weapon clattered to the floor. She was already on him. One strike, carotid artery. 2 fingers to the throat. He dropped, breathing, barely. Civilians stared in silence, frozen in the wreckage of what had once been a peaceful morning. Chairs overturned, glass cracked, the detonator still blinking. But Elena Marlowe stood at the center of it all, breathing, bloodied, and alive. And somehow, so was everyone else. Silence. Not peace, just absence. The kind that arrives after the chaos has spent itself and left behind only breath, blood, and broken tiles. The terminal that once buzzed with boarding announcements now pulsed with quiet tension. A baby whimpered. A security alarm chirped somewhere in the distance. A coffee machine hissed, forgotten and overboiled. And in the center of it all stood Elena Marlowe, her hair slightly disheveled, blood drying on the edge of her sleeve, her breathing calm even. The little girl was safe. The passengers were alive. The attackers neutralized. She looked down. Her hands trembled slightly, but not from fear, from restraint. The security team arrived in waves. Not the TSA guards in pressed shirts, but full tactical teams. Kevlar, carbines, flashlights slicing through the fluorescent fog. Voices shouted, "Hands, now! Get down! Let me see your hands! Step away from the device!" Elena didn't argue. She didn't posture. She raised her hands slowly, palms open, fingers wide. "I'm unarmed," she said clearly. "The detonator's on the floor. The target is disarmed." It wasn't a plea. It was a debrief. They moved in anyway, all angles, weapons trained. A lead officer, mid-40s, sharp beard, badge labeled Danner, moved in cautiously. "Ma'am, on the ground, hands behind your head." She nodded and complied. The cuffs clicked tight. They were standard zip ties, temporary, efficient. They used 3, maybe because of protocol. Maybe because they sensed somehow that one wasn't enough. As she knelt on the tile floor, Elena's eyes locked on the blinking red of the detonator a few feet away. The officer closest to it crouched, examined it, and froze. "Jesus," he muttered. "This thing's active." Voices escalated in his comms headset. "Bomb squad. Command center." An alert was issued. "Omega Division, priority red." Behind Elena, people began to evacuate. Slowly, quietly. Families herded together. Agents moved in with padded crates, scanning equipment, and quiet eyes. She sat still. She wasn't afraid of what came next. She already knew what came next, because she knew the system. She had been the system. Some people retire from war. Others carry it inside them, waiting for the next time they're needed, even if they don't want to be. 18 minutes passed before the next voice entered the scene. calm, clipped, unmistakably federal. Ms. Marlowe? A woman approached. Mid-30s, tailored suit, no visible weapon but a presence like polished steel. She held a digital tablet under one arm and a badge on the other. FBI, Omega Liaison. Her name was Agent Janelle Cross. Elena looked up, didn't speak. Cross crouched, professional but not unkind. Walk me through what happened. Elena tilted her head. Her voice was even, almost casual. Before we start, run my name. All of it, including the classified sections. Agent Cross blinked. Excuse me? Elena's eyes didn't move. Trust me, you'll want to. Cross hesitated, clearly skeptical. She tapped the tablet, typed, and as she did, her expression shifted. First confused, then alert, then quiet. The screen flashed once, then her earpiece buzzed, and then her phone rang. She stepped away, answered, spoke in clipped phrases, nodded once, then returned to Elena. She didn't sit this time. I need you to come with me. Elena didn't resist. She didn't ask questions. She simply stood, with zip ties still tight around her wrists. They walked through the terminal like two shadows returning from a world no one else had seen. People watched but didn't speak. Behind them, the crime scene remained active. The press had not yet arrived. The footage had not yet gone viral. But something else had begun. Something deeper, quieter, older. Inside a makeshift command room, Elena was finally unbound. A man waited inside. Gray suit, tired eyes, posture like a statue. Director Marcus Valen, Omega Division. The man who once oversaw operations that didn't officially exist. He didn't smile. It's been a while. Elena gave a soft nod. I was hoping for a quieter retirement. He slid a thick file across the table. Her file. So were we. She sat, calm, as if this were a morning staff meeting, not a federal debrief. He opened the file. Dozens of pages. Surveillance. Ops history. Psychological assessments. Mission reports. On the top, Marlowe, Elena. Status, inactive. Designation, Shadow 5. He gestured at the file. The device you stopped wasn't designed to blow up here. Remote kill switch. Timer fallback. They had an extraction plan. We've been tracking that cell for 6 months. We didn't expect them to strike today. Elena exhaled slowly. And you definitely didn't expect one of your burned assets to be at Gate 9. Cross, still standing in the corner, asked quietly, how did you know to say your name would trigger the system? Elena finally smiled. I didn't. Not fully, but I figured, after 8 years in the dark, someone would still be watching. I mentioned Black Ember hardware, and somewhere at Langley, a flag lit up like Christmas. She leaned back. Part bluff, part math, part luck. Director Valen tapped the file again. Elena, we could use you back. Her smile vanished. No. The silence lingered. I've missed weddings, funerals. I've been shot, stabbed, buried alive twice. I've zipped up body bags with people I love still inside them. I've given enough. She stood. All I want is to make it to my sister's house in time for dinner. Valen stared at her for a long second, then nodded once. You've earned it. Elena walked toward the exit, past agents, past cameras, past protocols. Behind her, a sealed terminal. Ahead, dusk, and maybe lasagna. But deep down she knew this wasn't over, because people like her don't just disappear. They echo, in silence, in shadows, in systems that never forget. Inside the glass-paneled briefing room, time moved differently. The chaos of Gate 9 now felt like another country. Out there, the world buzzed. Bomb techs, security teams, analysts dissecting debris and camera footage. But in here, all was still. Elena Marlowe sat across from Agent Janelle Cross, her hands now free but resting motionless on the table. Her jacket, still stained with someone else's blood, was folded neatly on the back of the chair. Agent Cross, in contrast, paced slowly, tablet in hand, stylus tapping rhythmically. She didn't look annoyed or aggressive, just thoughtful, skeptical, almost curious. So, Cross said finally, you want me to run your full name, even the classified tags? Elena nodded once. Yes. Why? Because otherwise you're wasting time asking questions I can't legally answer. Cross narrowed her eyes, then tapped her screen. A few seconds passed. Then her earbud buzzed. It's flagging, she muttered. Level 5 firewall. Omega protocols. Internal lockdown just activated. She looked up. Slower now. Who the hell are you? Elena didn't reply. Not yet. Not until the room changed. And then, it did. The door opened, and in walked the man Elena had expected all along. Director Marcus Valen was a presence, not a personality. His suit was immaculate, gray with a black tie, like he belonged to a world that no longer allowed color. His movements were economical, no excess. His face was lined, but his eyes were still sharp, observant, and utterly unreadable. He didn't waste time. Agent Cross, he said calmly, you're dismissed. Sir, now. Cross stepped out without protest, but not without a second glance at Elena. One part suspicion, one part awe. When the door clicked shut, Valen sat across from Elena and placed a 3-inch thick folder on the table. He didn't push it toward her. He didn't need to. Her photo was on top, black and white. She looked younger, angrier, stamped across the top. Marlowe, Elena. Status, inactive. Unit, Crimson Halo. He tapped the folder. You know what this is. Elena didn't nod. I never asked to come back. You didn't. But here you are. Valen sighed, leaned back. You neutralized 2 ghost contractors in under 90 seconds. Preserved over 200 civilian lives. Disabled a Black Ember detonator before it could even arm. He folded his hands. And you did all that while off duty, in civilian clothing, with a boarding pass. She didn't ask for recognition. She asked for lasagna. That's the difference between warriors and heroes. Elena exhaled, calm. They were professionals, not fanatics. Their exit paths were planned. Their comms were encrypted. They weren't sent to die. They were sent to start something. She glanced at the file, didn't touch it. My guess? They weren't even phase 1. They were phase 0, a test run. Valen nodded slowly. That's what we're seeing too. Remote-triggered device, not designed to explode there. Likely tied to secondary targets. And they were tracking someone. He stared at her. You? Elena didn't react. What do you want me to say, Marcus? That I'm surprised? I've been off the grid, not invisible. Someone always notices eventually. We tried to stop you from walking away. You didn't try hard enough. Another pause, another silence. Then, come back, he said. Just that. 2 words, and Elena felt the weight of them. Not in theory, but in memory. The sound of bone breaking, the weight of sand-filled boots. The names she'd written in blood and never spoken aloud again. She stood. No. Valen didn't try to argue. You were the best we had. Elena looked at the door. And look where that got me. He said nothing. I missed my mother's funeral. I missed my sister's wedding. I've held a dying teenager's hand in a jungle and told her she was going home, while knowing she wouldn't. I've buried things I can't even name without triggering a clearance level 5 inquiry. Her voice didn't break, but her eyes did. I've given enough. She walked toward the door, paused. Do me one favor. Anything. Don't flag me again. If another war is coming, let someone else catch it first. Valen stood slowly. You know we can't promise that. Then don't pretend we ever could. Outside the room, Agent Cross stood waiting, arms crossed. Elena passed her without a word, but Cross called after her. You could have stayed, you know. Elena didn't stop walking. No, I couldn't. You're still one of us. Elena smiled faintly over her shoulder. That's the problem. And she kept walking, toward a life she never really left, but one she wasn't ready to return to. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The sun was sinking low, casting gold across the airport tarmac as Elena Marlowe stepped through the final set of double doors. Behind her, Gate 9 remained sealed, swarmed with agents and forensic teams combing through every square foot of a near tragedy that never happened. But she didn't look back. There was nothing more to give that scene. Not a statement, not a name, not a single ounce of adrenaline. Everything that needed to happen had already happened, and yet the weight still lingered on her shoulders like armor she couldn't take off. The city outside was unaware. A breeze rolled off the concrete. A delivery bike whizzed past. The world was returning to its rhythms, oblivious to the fact that dozens of lives had nearly been erased before lunch. Waiting just outside the restricted perimeter stood Agent Janelle Cross, her arms folded, tablet tucked away, expression softer than before. "You sure you don't want an escort?" she asked as Elena approached. "I've had enough people at my back for one day," Elena replied with a half smile. "Then at least let me say thank you." Elena shrugged. "I didn't do it for thanks." Cross looked at her for a long second. "No, I guess you didn't. You didn't do it for anyone. Except maybe the girl with the elephant." That made Elena pause. "She reminded me of someone I used to know," she said quietly. "Someone who never got protected in time." Cross nodded, sensing the end of the conversation approaching like a closing door. "Are you going back underground? Off the grid?" "No," Elena said. "Just going home. Will you ever come back to us?" Elena didn't answer right away. She looked out toward the street. Cars moved like blood through arteries. Normalcy was returning to the city. "Maybe some of us are just meant to be there in the moments that count," she finally said. "Not to stay, just to stop the bleeding before it starts." "That sounds lonely." "It is. But," Elena smiled gently, "but it's still better than forgetting who you are just to wear a new badge." A yellow cab rolled to a slow stop at the curb. The driver tapped the horn once. Elena slung her bag over her shoulder, adjusted her collar, and stepped toward the car. "Tell them at Omega I said goodbye." "They won't believe it," Cross replied. "That's their problem." The cab smelled faintly of leather and air freshener. The driver looked half asleep, jazz humming low from the radio. "Where to?" "Lakewood and Fifth." He nodded, shifted into gear, and pulled away from the curb. As the city moved past her window, Elena finally allowed herself to exhale. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't bleeding. She wasn't being chased. And that, for someone like her, was close enough to peace. She reached into her jacket and pulled out her phone. One missed call. Her sister. She tapped redial. The voice that answered was familiar. Warm, concerned, a bit annoyed. "You said you'd be here an hour ago." "I know," Elena said. "I got held up." "Work?" "Sort of." "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." There was a pause. "Lasagna's still in the oven." Elena smiled. "Good. I'm on my way." Security footage from Gate 9 would later become required training. Her takedowns were reviewed frame by agents and instructors who never met her. The two men she stopped would eventually talk. And when they did, they revealed a network of planned attacks across 3 states, all timed within 72 hours. Their handlers disappeared before warrants could be served. The detonator she disarmed? One of 5. But no one would ever learn that the person who stopped it all wasn't on duty, wasn't armed, wasn't scheduled. She was just trying to make it home for dinner. The cab slowed at a red light. Outside, a teenager pushed a shopping cart full of laundry down the sidewalk. A man kissed his partner goodbye at a bus stop. A little boy pointed up at the blinking lights of a plane overhead and whispered, "Mom, look." It was a world worth fighting for. Even if the fight never made headlines, even if the people you saved never knew your name. Elena's eyes followed the plane as it arced into the clouds. Then she leaned back and closed her eyes. She didn't need a parade. She didn't need a medal. She just needed a meal. And maybe a quiet chair to sit in, not to plan an ambush, not to scan for threats, but just to breathe and belong. Just for tonight. Sometimes the people who save us don't wear uniforms. They don't ask for medals. They don't stand behind podiums. They just do what needs to be done. And then go home to warm lasagna, a phone call, or a promise they once made to someone who still believes in them. Elena Marlowe didn't stop that attack because she wanted glory. She did it because she saw danger and couldn't look away. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. Because today, in a world filled with noise, division, and headlines, quiet courage is easy to miss. We often wait for leaders, heroes, or systems to intervene. But sometimes it's the woman next to you at Gate 9, or the man who never talks about what he did over there, or the neighbor who always notices more than they let on. In the end, heroism rarely announces itself. It walks in silence, it reacts in seconds, and when it's done, it disappears. So let us ask you, have you ever met someone who reminded you of Elena? Someone who carried strength without showing it? Do you believe true heroism can come from those who no longer wear the uniform, but still live by the code? And if a moment ever comes, would you notice the signs and be ready to act? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories, your reflections, and the quiet people you admire most. If this story moved you, consider giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who still believes in silent strength. Thank you for spending time with us today. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and remember, not all warriors carry weapons. Some just carry groceries and watch everything.